Okay, so welcome everybody to our WIFT panel with female filmmakers from the Islamic world. We're very glad to have you all here and to have you watching in the live stream. I'm just going to very quickly present WIFT. WIFT is Women in Film and Television. We're a business network for women in film and television. We have 20,000 members worldwide. We're always open to new members, so if you want to join, come look at our website, wiftg for Germany.com. And now I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Siri Keil.
Thank you really very much, Lisa Habers. It's really great that this year's WIFT panel is at the Hamburg Film Festival is highlighting the strong presence of female filmmakers from the Islamic world. We talk about this later. My name is Siri Keil, and I have both the pleasure and the honor to talk to these women today, this afternoon. And I will start with introducing them shortly because I think it's really necessary to have a full idea of what their work is about and what their work looks like, although I do have only these few minutes and I know that I can't cover all what they've done. So I start with the woman and lady on my right. This is Shabanu Sadat. She is a writer and director and producer and women's rights activist from Afghanistan. She's currently living in Hamburg. In 2010, with only 20, she was selected to develop her first feature film, Wolf and Sheep, at the Cannes Cine Fondation residency, being the youngest filmmaker ever selected. She finalized Wolf and Sheep in 2016, and with this debut, she right away received the top prize, Cannes Directors Fortnight. Her latest feature film, The Orphanage, was again selected for the Cannes Director Fortnight in 2019 and won the Golden Puffin Award at Reykjavik Film Festival. It's a real pleasure to have you here, Shabanu Sadat. Yes, you can use the mic to correct me at any time.
Yes, sorry. No, I just wanted to say I'm just a filmmaker. I'm not a women's rights activist. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm just a filmmaker.
Okay, that's good that you say it. Then we get also back to that later. Hello. Adila. Have a seat, Adila. Great to have you here. I just continue. I'll be right with you in a moment. Then we have from Iran, Farnaz Sharifi. She is a documentary filmmaker, editor, and member of the Iranian Documentary Filmmakers Association. As an editor, she's responsible for films such as Tomorrowland, Cypher and Lion, Radiograph of a Family, and her latest I'm Trying to Remember from 2021. As a director, she made the remarkable, really remarkable revolutionary memoirs of Braham, Who Loved Layla in 2012, followed by Profession Documentarist in 2016, then the film Missing. And she's part of this year's jury for the NDR Nachwuchspreis here at the Film Festival in Hamburg. Welcome, dear Farnaz Sharifi. So, and welcome the woman who came a little late, and we're so glad that you're here, Adila Bendimerat from Algeria, actress, writer, producer, and director. As an actor, she starred in The Repentant in 2012, winning Best Arab Actress Award in 2013. With the feature film The Rooftops, she was awarded at the Cairo Film Festival. As a writer and producer and actress, her short film Kindil El Bar premiered in 2016 at Cannes Film Festival. And her latest work, The Last Queen, premiered a few weeks ago at this year's Venice Film Festival's Gerondage degli Autori, and is now screening at Filmfest Hamburg. It's a real pleasure to have you here, Adila Bendimerat. And then please welcome the Afghan-German director of photography, writer, and director Samarin Wadat. As a camera operator, she is responsible for the film Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You Are a Girl, which won an Oscar at the Academy Awards in 2020 for Best Short Documentary. As a writer-director, her work Bambirak from 2020 was awarded Best Short Film at Sundance Film Festival. She has just completed shooting a German-Canadian feature film that is to be released next year and is currently developing her next feature as a writer-director. Samarin Wadat, great to have you here. And we have the actress, writer, and director Tamina Rafaela from Azerbaijan. Her directorial debut, Quadin, A Woman, which she wrote, produced, and starred in, was, for example, awarded Best Narrative Short Film at the Oregon Band Film Festival in 2020. Her feature film, Banu, is the first independent Azerbaijani feature from a female director and premiered this year at Venice Film Festival as part of the Biennale College Cinema program. Banu, which she also wrote, produced, and stars in, will screen at the Hamburg Film Festival on Friday 7th, so in 2 days, here in the Cinemax. Tamina Rafaela, it's also so wonderful that you're here.
Thank you so much. Just a quick correction, I did not produce Banu.
Okay.
My producer is Iranian, actually, also from Iran.
Okay.
Ms. Katan Shahabi.
So this is another good example, and we just spoke before. Please feel free to correct me concerning information, topics, and whatever. And if I do misspell something, pronounce a name or a word wrong, feel free to correct me because I find this really important. In the coming 90 minutes, we will talk about many aspects of filmmaking from the perspective of women. But when it comes to truly appreciating the work of these artists here, then we would need at least 1.5 hours or 2 or more for each one of you. So we can only have a tap on the individual works of these women today. And in any case, soon enough, after approximately 1 hour, we will also open up this panel for questions of yours, dear audience. So feel free and prepared to ask whatever you have on your mind. And let's now start with something that I really found interesting when I was reading again the name or the title of this panel. And I noticed that I was wondering what the term the Islamic world, because this is the panel is called Women Filmmakers of the Islamic World, what this the Islamic world actually means, so what it incorporates. And the first question I would like just simply to ask all of you is that can you identify with this description, female filmmakers from the Islamic world? Do you feel like being a representative of something like female cinema from the Islamic world? This is free for everyone who wants to have something in his or her mind.
I do and I don't. I do because I am a female filmmaker from Islamic country. In that sense I do, but I don't because I'm not a religious person and I do not really see myself in that context only. I see myself more a filmmaker and I'm a filmmaker, so in my mind there's no limit. I can make film about whatever. I'm interested in human and its life in different conditions, and it can be in Germany or Afghanistan or any other places in the world. But in some sense, I can also say, yes, I connect with that, again, because I am interested in telling the stories about Afghanistan. And no matter what, if I live in Germany or when I was in Afghanistan, I'm dealing with this topic. I am connected with this community, my characters, my actors, like people that I'm caring about them, they are from that community. So I think it's very complex. It's not like, oh yeah, I do, or oh no, I don't. I think it depends on what mood I am, you know, and what day and what project. Sometimes I really see myself a female filmmaker from Afghanistan, and sometimes I feel like that's like a chain, you know, taking my foot down, because I just don't, because it's also kind of cliche, you know. If I be honest with you, it's also kind of cliche, like, and in the market of cinema, these kind of words, they are such like keywords that they are used a lot in the marketing for selling films, and I do not like it in that sense to sell myself as a female director from Afghanistan, because then this is a title that if I stand behind it, it also makes me to follow some expectations, to make movies about Afghanistan and Muslim and religion, you know, the topics that maybe I do not want to. So.
Yeah. Can you relate to that?
I come from, actually looking at all the countries here, in some ways I feel like, do I really belong here? Because yes, I come from a country that is Muslim, a secular Muslim, but we don't really consider, our government does not really consider us an Islamic republic, which I think is, but at the same time, you know, our ancestors and many people do follow the religion, and I'm also not religious, but I do believe and respect very much Islam. I appreciate it. So in some ways, saying coming from the Islamic world, yes, I do, but at the same time, I think it's more than that. I see myself as a female filmmaker from the side of the world that is underrepresented. And I think Islam is part of underrepresented world in general in cinema. So I could relate to that.
So this is also about intersectionalism, because female filmmakers are underrepresented, and so this is two sides. So, but maybe I can add another part of the question, because you just said it. So the experience of this ambivalence, being critical of religion, maybe, or non-religious, religious secular person, and also at the same time having a deep appreciation for Islamic or Muslim culture and traditions and values. So, is this something also that you experience, or that you observe within yourselves?
For instance, I'm just going to go back to this list, and I'm very happy that in my behind my name there's Deutschland and Afghanistan, because that is the truth. Like, I was very, very little when I left. I have no memories. Like, from my childhood, I don't. Like, I was 2 years old, like toddlerhood, I say. And my first memories start in our Heim. Like you said, like in the 90s it was called Asylheim. I know it's not called that anymore, but there's my first memories start there. Like just growing up in Germany in our Asylheim with a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. Like, that was my normal life, and my parents just being there. And then when we got our apartment, and I grew up in a very, like, I'm from Hamburg, so I grew up in Hamburg, and I grew up in Fuhlsbüttel, which is actually a very beautiful part of Hamburg. And also it's a very, it's a part of Hamburg which is also very German. So suddenly, like, I go to school, and the majority of my friends are German, and I go to high school, and I could read it like 5 friends from a different country, because that were the 5 people who went to my school, and the rest were German. So I always grew up with my Afghan family here, who was, the family of my dad was not that religious, like none of them really. And my dad was a scientist, so he actually was an atheist and got into a lot of trouble with the side of my mom, who was much more religious. So like growing up with 2 parents, from like one of them being like believing and religion is a bit more important to her, and the other side being like, no, you're not allowed to fast, it's bad for you, it's something that is old and it's not for here, we live in the Western world now. So having this kind of growing up with this as a child, with this like paradox, like, okay, mom allows you to fast, but if dad finds out, you get into trouble. Like, it was like that. And so we found compromises, like just fasting on the weekend, which he didn't like, but we still did it because my mom allowed us to. And like, so for me, I feel I'm not, because I grew up with, I mean, it's the truth, like, I grew up with a lot of Western values, Western upbringing, Western friends, Western media and television, but then in the same time I got a lot from my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, my dad, like the Afghani side, and watching watching what I mean, they watch Bollywood, but like watching their cinema, which was mainstream Bollywood. So, like Shabano already said, like I like, even though there part of me believes, but part of me doesn't. You know, like it's just I believe some in angels and in a, like in something bigger, but I don't believe like in like I don't believe in religious per se. So it's kind of an interesting term to be labeled. Like for me, I don't think I am representing. I'm a filmmaker representing the Islamic world because I grew up here. But then at the same time, like Shabano said, like I grew up here with the politics, like with the mindset of my parents in a way, and the German mindset, and then navigating that and trying to find your place. But for me, I'm just I'm interested in films, so I'm a filmmaker interested in the people more than in the politics. The politics come with the people, I think.
I see. Okay, this is interesting for further questions that I have in my mind for later. But Shabanu just said, also referred to the labeling and the burden that it might cause, being considered a representative of a certain, well, like in this case, it's the label female filmmaker from the Islamic world. Do you agree with this idea of it as a burden?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming here. Actually, as I told you, I'm not concentrated very well today to speaking about myself because the situation in Iran, all my thoughts and my heart is with my people in Iran, especially with the women in Iran. That right now I'm sitting here, they are fighting for their basic rights, and they are being killed in a street. So I wish I could say I'm not connected with any kind of religion in my life and in my work, but unfortunately I can't say. Yes, because when you are living in a country, I think it's something behind religious and behind Islam, because we have many other countries that they are Islamic countries, and they are different from Iran. And also, before revolution, people were Muslim in Iran. It's not just about this recent 43 years in Iran. So it's about a dictatorship regime that we have. It's not about the Islam. So when they are control your everyday life, all the details, all the things that you are doing in your life, as a human being, not as a filmmaker. So yes, you are connected to them, and you can identify yourself as a human being, as a filmmaker, as a woman. Even, I'm so sorry to say, but even as a dog, as a cat, you know, they're killing everything. They're killing every kind of creature. So yes, I can say later how it's affected on my work.
Yes. How about you, Attila? So concerning the idea of this term, do you have any thoughts about that?
So I apologize for my English, first of all, because voilà. So you know, for our first film, Kindil al-Bahr, it's a story about a woman who wants to swim alone in the sea, and she's killed by men who want to touch her, and at the end she's killed, and she became like a monster living under the sea. We at this moment we choose to place this history in no country. There was no country and no religion, because it was about violence against women. And I didn't want that people connect, you know, say, it's because they are Muslim, that's why they killed this woman. It was really about violence. And something very funny happened when I watched The Last Queen, our last film. When I was in Hamburg, I said to my co-director, Damien Honouri, you know, it's a very Islamic film. It's a film about 16th century in Algeria. It's about a queen and pirates and the king who is killed. And I remember that during the shooting, I used to add Islamic words. I was very inspired by the Quran, because I thought that it was right because it was like that at this period. And we didn't put Islamic reference, even if it's not the topic at all, Islam, because we try to make a period film. You know, it's the first period film in Algeria, but we wanted to do it like Occidental Western film, and we say no, it's not possible. We as Muslim in Africa, in North Africa, we know everything about Christianism because the cinema always talk about that. You know, even a film like about mafia, Le Parrain, the Godfather.
Yes, the Godfather.
We have a lot of reference to Catholicism. So we didn't feel free to say Allahu Akbar, for example. The film starts like that, Allahu Akbar, because they are fighting. And one of the producers in Europe say, no, please don't say Allahu Akbar in the film. Because
really? That's interesting.
Yeah, but you know, it's like he was. And I say, okay, so we will say it 3 times.
Yes.
Because this is censorship. So the film, it's about pirates, a queen and the kingdom. And it's beautiful. It's not about Islam, but we have a lot of reference, and this is like underrepresented part of the world, and it's very interesting. I think this kind of film to be watched in Europe because it shows our culture, the religion at this period, and we have to bring that in the cinema because we exist. So we have to show who we are, even if we are not religious. But it was like that in 16th century in Algeria. So my English is clear?
It's definitely clear. It's really wonderful. Everybody understands everything. So we'll get back later to your film, The Last Queen, a little later. And that I know, as I said, we will not have really the opportunity to talk about each work period of these women, but I try to find a way to get into some ideas of how you make films. And I would like to start with some thoughts about what shapes your narratives and the characters of your films, and how all the characters shape maybe your films, how you approach your films. And I would like to start with you, Sharbanou. For example, in your work, we are dealing with a series of films that you also write and direct, and they have a particular character at their center. And do I pronounce it right? It's Kodrat. So who is he? It's a boy.
Well, actually, Kodrat is a friend of mine, is my love. I met him like 12 years ago in a TV channel in Kabul where we worked. He was working in the news department. I was working in the production. I was a producer of a cooking show. And he was a host in the news for economic news. So we met each other at canteen during, lunch or pause. And he told me his life story. We started up a relationship, but his past was very unclear in his point, and he wanted to share his life, but his life looked like a Hollywood, Bollywood movie somehow. So he was afraid that if he tell me the truth, I do not understand it, or I
believe it.
Even I believe
Wow.
it that it's a lie, or it's a truth. And so he decided to write me down his story every day, 7 pages, and within 1 year we collected 800 pages of his diary, of his life written by him. And when I read it, that was the time that I was like 18. I was not a filmmaker at all. I never made a short film even. And I told him immediately. I was in the university. I was studying cinema and theater, but I was like in a first semester, so I was like freshwoman, and then like when I read this like 800 pages, of course I was reading it every day, and that was my motive to wake up every day to open my email and to to read the next 7 pages. But like when I read all these 800 pages in one breath, in one time, I said to him, like immediately I called him and I said to him, listen, I want to make 5 feature films based on your film. And he was like, okay, do it. Because he didn't believe that I will do that. I was not a filmmaker at that time. So the years has passed.
You can say he made you become a filmmaker because of his story. You decided you have to do this.
I had my story before. I was working on a story of mine because I was born in Iran, and when I was 11, we moved back to Afghanistan with the help of UNHCR. It was 2001, after 11th of September events, and like despite of other people going back to Afghanistan and settling down in cities, in big cities in Kabul, my parents decided to go back to their small village in central Afghanistan in the middle of nowhere with like 7 muddy houses and then mountains and nothing else. No school, no clinic, no electricity, no water, nothing. It was like we are back in time, like 100 years ago. And when I was 18, I could finally get out of there after 7 years and go back to Kabul and going to university and studying film, by accident, of course. So I had the idea that I want to make a film about my life in that community. But then when I met my friend Anwar, who is also here in this room,
welcome.
Yeah. So I completely forgot about my story, because he was like, as I told you, I was born in Iran. I didn't know much about Afghanistan, and I was just 18 years. And I always had this idea, like, I hate Afghanistan. I hate this country. I want to go out. I want to live somewhere else, like where my parents are not, where there is no, society telling me what you should do. So I didn't have any love for Afghanistan. But when I met Anwar, and with his story, I fell in love with Afghanistan also, because he told me about his life that happened, in the past, because he's like almost 20 years older than me. So he was telling me about, his life, but also the past of Afghanistan. So I had this, I suddenly felt for the first time in my life, I felt connected with this country. I fell in love, and I was like, okay, I want to tell, I found my topic. I said to myself, I want to make film about everyday life of ordinary people. This is the people that they never, had the stage to tell their stories.
So the third part. You're in the making of the third part right now.
Yes, so as I told Anwar in the beginning, I decided to make 5 feature films. So we made 2 parts so far, and now we are working on the 3rd part and 4th part.
Okay, so what time frame do you think of? Because you also work, like I read, you also work with this one actor. You want to see him grow, like François Truffaut with the how was his name? Antoine Doinel cycle. Like you met this.
Yeah, this is something that the French critics they wrote,
compared it to it.
I didn't know this director or this film.
I see. Yeah, because this is what I thought. Like it's a bit like a weird comparison. But you want to see this actor grow in a way, like, and these 5 films are filmed in which time frame? Yeah,
well, the first film happened in the end of 70s when Soviet they invaded Afghanistan, but it is also in no time. So if you are not familiar with such similar words that it connecting us to that time, you can say that is a story for today, because it's happening in central Afghanistan. It's where I grew up, and it's very rural, it's very poor, and nothing really has changed for people. People are not even, ordinary people even are not aware of who was the president of Afghanistan before, who is now. For them, it's just like some gunman interrupting their life from time to time. So you can also say that it's a film happening now, so there's no time. But in my head, it's like end of 70s when Russian invaded Afghanistan. And then second film is happening in end of 80s and beginning of 90s, when the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan collapsed, and Mujahideen. They took over Kabul, and then the civil war started. And this film, I wanted the third part that I wanted to work. I wanted to make a film in the present, and I started to work on this film like 2 years ago in 2020. But then last year, Afghanistan collapsed again, the government, and I had to leave my apartment, leave Afghanistan and come to France and then to Germany. And since then, I'm living here. And then I'm thinking like, oh, okay, again, I have to make a film in the past, because the film, the time frame would be like the last 6 months, and gonna end with August when Afghanistan collapsed. So.
Okay, so if you can move your story through time, which is the beauty of filmmaking, possibility that filmmaking gives you. I would like to go to Tamina. Speaking of narrative perspectives, your current film, Banu, your feature film debut, like we said, which is also being shown at the festival, is about a mother struggling to gain custody of her son in the face of patriarchal structures in Azerbaijan. And as we mentioned, the film is labeled the first independent Azerbaijani film made by a female director, and this needed to be a story of a woman, right? So was this, what was the idea first? Did you say first, okay, I need to do a film from a woman's perspective and then I find a story, or was the story first?
You know, it's so interesting because I can definitely connect to what Shahar Banu was saying earlier about like wanting to push herself against Afghanistan at the beginning. I think growing up, I also had that feeling with Azerbaijan, which is where I'm from. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to LA one day and I'm going to be a director and an actress in LA, and I don't want anything to do with Azerbaijan. But I think the more I moved further away, the more I realized that actually the stories I wanted to tell were from Azerbaijan. And they were particularly centered around women, because I didn't see any women's stories in our films. And it has nothing to do with Islam. It was just that we didn't have a lot of opportunities for female filmmakers. And I think there's also this very ingrained patriarchy and also internalized misogyny that people have, that was very sad to witness. So when I finally started, writing and making films about the women in Azerbaijan, I realized that they had to be. I had this chance to be a voice for some of these women, and I hope more women can continue to do it. And some of them are. We have brilliant filmmakers. They're not given the opportunities to do so. So for me, it's I came up with a story actually a while ago, because I remember growing up and I remember hearing stories of these women who were their husbands were trying to take away their children from them, even though the court was on the side of the mother. It was the power that made them they were able to do so, and they were claiming that the woman is psychologically unfit, that she's a prostitute, just really unreasonable claims. And I thought that was so strange. And I was just a little child thinking that how can a child not live with their mother? So that was the first thing, that was something that I wanted to talk about. And then the war happened 2 years ago between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And the war is the second war. And we've had this conflict with Armenia for so long. And I grew up with it. It surrounded us for so long. And that's not a religious war at all, as some people want to represent it. It's not. And that was really hard for me to witness, because once again in war, it was the patriarchy that was controlling it. It was the women that were suffering the most, because they were being left without their sons, their brothers, their husbands, and the kids that were fighting on both ends. It was mostly 18-year-olds that were being taken. And I think that was like, when the war happened, I had so many emotions and feelings. I was struggling between feeling happy for the refugees that were able to return home to their homelands that were taken 30 years ago, but also I couldn't fathom the idea of winning a war when there was so much loss, especially for women. And so those two ideas combined, I wanted to make a story about, first of all, about these women, a woman fighting for the custody of her child, but also it was very, very important for me to make a movie about the war that has been following us for so long from a female perspective. All the movies that we have from Azerbaijan that focus on war are strictly one-sided, and they're also only showing one perspective to war. And I think we have to show it through the female perspective too, because our perspective most of the times, is much different than the ones that we see from the male gaze.
Is the film already being shown in Azerbaijan?
Actually, no, not yet. It's going to be, I'm sure, an interesting reaction to see
That's
from
what I
people. I'm
wanted
already
to know, what you
prepared for
expect.
criticism because there are a lot of people who are incredibly nationalistic, just like in every country. But we also do have a lot of younger generations that are now standing up and saying, we do not want to lose any more people over a piece of land, you know. And I think that I'm proud of this, but I think that in many ways, I'm proud also, no matter the kind of criticism I will get from my own people for my work. I'm glad that that is out there, so at least some people can say they're not the only ones. Because I used to think I'm the only one that thought that way, and when I started talking about it, I realized I wasn't. It's just we were afraid of talking about it. We were so afraid of being criticized. We were so afraid of being ostracized from the society and being told we're not real Azerbaijanis because we didn't support war.
So this is all about, also about empowering other women and amplifying women's voices.
Absolutely, yes.
Respect, great deal of respect, because this is also a really, really strong part of what you do and what films are able and capable of doing. So, Adila, first of all, I think you just got a baby, right? Congratulations. Warmest congratulations to you from all of us. So as you just already said, to this film festival, you brought the first Algerian costume drama demonstrating from an Algerian perspective, an Algerian history before the colonial time. So this is really something what you already said, that this narrative is not represented. So is this some sort of way to reclaim the history of a country which is so deeply influenced by these colonial eyes and this colonial perspective, that there is the history before is not present at all? Is this reclaiming this history of your country?
Yes, because you know, in Algeria we have a lot of filmmakers since Algeria is independent. So we built the country with a film about the war against French. The war for the independence and how Algeria was free. And then you have another kind of filmmakers now who try to make film, but the film, you know, we don't have a cinema industry in Algeria, so they have to make film for Europe, for America. They try to, so we feel that, and no, it's good to make such film about social question, political question, woman question, but I think that we really miss in our cinema history something out of all these topics. Je sais pas si c'est clair. Sorry.
It's everything is really, really good, well understood.
Yes, so it's a real desire of cinema, but we didn't feel free. When we talk with Algerian or Arabic or African filmmakers, they say, "Oh, you feel free to do that, but you're crazy. How you're gonna produce that? Because it's very difficult to produce the drama costume film in Algeria, from Algeria. How you gonna do to make such film?" So we fight during 7 years to make this film and to make it possible.
Also to collect the money to finance it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we ask for the money, we always have the same sentence. Why this period in Algeria? We don't wait that from you. So what do you want from us? So you want something from us. So we are not free to just tell our our stories as we like, you know, because people who decided for the financial questions, they want something from our region. So they want sometimes something about, Daesh, or which is very interesting. We need to tell such stories. But at this time, I wanted to tell this story about this queen and these pirates, because it's very important, this period for our for the Algerian identity, and for me it's very important. So that's why I shoot this film, and I had to convince people that this is very important.
So I think it is really interesting because it is such a big film, and it has a big budget in a way, and it's such a big film that came out, and it is this huge film, and in the center of it is a woman as the queen. And what I find interesting, it's also not already published in Algeria, right?
It's not already, because it will be in January.
In January. Because I heard that Algerian members of the audience that have seen the screening on Monday really reacted very, very positively because of this perspective that the film is offering from an Algerian perspective beyond these colonial shaped perspective. What do you have any idea what reactions do you expect from Algeria?
We need to imagine that it's very natural for a European to watch film, drama, costume film. But in Algeria, it will be the first time that young and old Algerian will see, like their ancestors talking the same language. And it's incredible because it never happened. And we need that. We need to know from where we come to continue, because we are not just from the colonialism or from now. We have a long history, and I hope that Algerian filmmakers and Africans will feel free to tell their history, to show to the world our culture, our geography, how we dress, how we talk, how we say hello, how we eat. It seems very natural for American or European, but for us it's new, and it's not normal. What happened? Why we never do that before? It's like we never allow to ourselves to tell such story. Our history.
So this is also about sooner or later, hopefully,
and
breaking.
Sorry, but it's very low budget. It seems to be a big budget because it's beautiful. No, c'est pas ça, mais yes. I mean, when you see the film, you feel that you have a big budget, but no, it's very small budget, and we had to invent another way to make film, because this is our condition. We can't have a lot of money. Maybe for the next film, but so we have to be very inventive. Voilà.
So, but yeah, about what you just said, but this is also about finally breaking this Eurocentric or Western-centric perspective on issues, on regions, on countries, on cultures. So this is all part of this as well. Farhanaz Sharifi, at the beginning of your 2016 film Missing, there are a few lines, and there we read, "What we document from our lives is the testimony to our loss." This is really, really beautifully expressed when I saw it. And is this thought something that guides and motivates or fuels your work? Is loss something, and memory something that you again and again materialize in your films?
Actually, I can say somehow most of my films are characterized by using archives. So all the time I'm challenging with archives, old photos, 8 millimeters material, and also all the time I'm recording video with my phone, maybe because to catch this moment and don't lose it. I don't know, and also I don't have a correct answer to why I'm crazy about archives.
And what are you working on currently? What is your current work? Do you work on a project at the moment?
Yeah, I'm working on a project. It's personal story about myself, about life of a woman in Iran during all the time after the revolution. I mean, I was born around the revolution. I have no memories from the Iran before revolution, but this is somehow a dialogue between the Iran after and before the revolution through myself as a filmmaker. Yeah.
Speaking of perspective finding or narrative findings, Samananwa, I'd like to come to your work that you're doing right now. Your experience with the protagonists as a camera operator for the film Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone, if you are a girl, in brackets. I know that you didn't write the film, but you interviewed the girls. Did the girls shape the course of the narrative of the film by what they said and what they did with you?
Hello. Yeah, it's on. Okay. They did. They are the reason why the film is what it is right now. Like, just a bit of a background story. I was like interpreter, translator, interviewer, and I kind of was the girl for everything. I did sound at some point and pulled focus in the same time because our Tamana, who's also an Afghan filmmaker and journalist, she was very young and she didn't know how to pull focus. And I was also second camera operator, so we had our DP, and I was like kind of put where I was needed. But I think my majority of my work happened with the girls because they were so young, 6 till 12, and our team, except of Tamana, the rest was like 55 above and American. So none of the girls could talk to them or relate to them. So I ended up actually doing a lot behind the scenes, sitting with them, giving them homework, letting them draw things and come back the next day. And then that opened up the interview parts where I received a script from my from the director, who was my professor at university. And based on that script, I kind of like formed the questions, but also went off script because some questions a 6-year-old just didn't understand. So I just went into her world and what is interesting to her. And the film was made in 2017, and it got the Oscar in 2020, and got into the first festival 2019. In between was 2 years. Editing took a long time because we also had to, I was also in the editing, I was assisting, because we didn't slate properly because they didn't have a professional sound person. So it was like mixed every sound of the cameras with the sound we got with the like Tascam or Zoom. And in the process of like syncing it and translating it in the same time, subtitling it, I was actually syncing via skateboarding clap and the gesture and like what she might have just said. And it was like, it took like 2 months to get this all together. So in the end, like they edited a movie which was not what the channel expected, because it wasn't supposed to be a film. It was 43 minutes long, which is not a normal cinema time, because it was made for TV channel. And like after 7 minutes, they wanted a break, and then having 7 minutes again. That's why 43. And but the TV channel, when they saw the first cut, they came back to my professor, the director, and said, "It's not interesting enough." And the director, my professor, she called me. She said, "Zama, I need to talk to you. Come to my office." I'm like, "Okay." she's like, well, this is the situation. The TV channel thinks our film is not dramatic, and they think we should put a story in which is about one of the girls we choose, and their father doesn't allow them to skateboard. And that's why she has to get married, but she still skateboards. And I looked at her, I was like, well, Carol, we don't have that. Like, this is a lie. And she was like, well, but that's what they expected. I was like, well, we didn't find the girl whose father didn't allow her to skateboard because that girl wouldn't go to that school because the parents have to sign off that they're going. And she was like, yeah, what should I do? And I was like, well, you have all these girls, they all have hopes and dreams. They love to skate. They want to become pilots. They want to become teachers. They want to become professional skateboarder and in Olympics. Like, there is a story. Let's just let the girls speak. And like through that, I'm so thankful that she listened, and she didn't listen to the TV company. In the end, the TV company didn't take the movie. So she went on her own to Copenhagen, because Copenhagen funded the post-production. America didn't. And then they edited the film. And then it got the first festival in New York, and then it got to the Oscars. And when it got to the Oscars, of course, everyone was like, the channel came back, and everyone was like, oh, we supported this story. Yeah, we supported this film. I was like, it was very bizarre, but it was the truth of the film industry. But so yeah, in the end, like, she didn't deliver the narrative that the UK and the US expected. That makes a lot of like viewers on the TV channel. And she ended up making the movie of the girls based on their interviews. That's why it's like learning to skate in a war zone if you're a girl, because it's basically the 5 steps of learning, like not knowing anything about skateboarding to knowing how to skateboard like a pro, but in the same time about their courage and their daily school lessons and how they kind of gain confidence as girls and their life before and their life after. And even the teachers, the same, like how the film is actually about being courageous as a girl in Afghanistan. And she did, like, that's what she did in the end. Like, she took a big risk, I think, but she pulled through, and then I'm so happy she did. And then in the end, it was worth it for her too, and for the TV channel who got back on board. I don't want to say which one, but yeah, and that's how the narrative shaped. Like, it really came from the girls.
About Islam and Christianity. Orient is east side of the universe, Occident, west side of the universe. So, and sometimes the west side of universe learns from east, sometimes east side of universe learns from west. And it seems to me that now, in the course of history, we are in the point that west side of the universe learns from east side of universe, from these women, courageous women of Iran or Afghanistan or Azerbaijan and Algeria, you know, this woman, wonderful woman. So maybe you have, Verena, liebe Verena, maybe we have changed this women filmmakers from Orient to bring back these wonderful terminologies of 1800. So we solved this problem. We solved that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there another question? Do I see a hand? I do not. Yes. Okay. Let me see. How do I get there? Right. Okay. Yeah. So if there's a question to some specific person, it would be great to just address it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. This was an amazing and very interesting panel. And I kept thinking, many people all over the world, and especially in the West, when they hear women from a Muslim, an Islamic country, they have a certain image in their head. And the image many people have is not what I'm seeing on stage. I'm seeing 5, well, there were 6 badass women. So I kept wondering, do you feel like there are a lot of misconceptions about female filmmakers from the Islamic world? And what is something you would like people to know?
If I may start, absolutely. I mean, I don't even come from a country that identifies itself as Islamic, like as Iranian government does. But even I feel like I'm always put in a, even at film festivals, there's always Islamic under my, when they mention what I am. And that's not to say that we're not. Of course, we're a secular Muslim country. But I think what the world needs to see more of is that we're not in a box. We're not in a box of just showing what people have, the perception of Islam, especially post 9/11. I think that was a big thing that shaped people's perception. And, I just had a wedding in Azerbaijan, and I married an American man, and a lot of people from there came, and there were so many, they were so surprised to see that, and they were educated people, and even they had to be educated and to see how different and drastically different it was from what people think the Islamic world represents. Because there's so many of us, and we're so different, and we come from so many different ethnicities and cultures and languages, and to put us in a box is almost not as much as it's offensive as it is sad, because we have so much to offer other than just being Islamic and coming from a Muslim world.
Somebody has something to add to this from the podium?
Just to add to your story, I think it's a very interesting question, because, like, for instance, when I was studying in New York, and I got with my suitcase always from the JFK airport to my apartment in Brooklyn, I took a taxi, and the taxi drivers always ask me where I'm from, where I'm coming from, but where I am from. And I was like, well, I study here, blah, blah. Sometimes I chose to say Germany. And then sometimes I was like, no, he will figure out I'm not from Germany, my hair and stuff. So I don't want to have that conversation. So I said Afghanistan straight away. I was like, okay, they're going to be happy with that answer. And they're not going to ask further because I'm tired. And then when at this one time, I just said, without thinking, I was like, Afghanistan, so I don't have to explain myself. And then he looks at me, he's like, wow, I didn't expect a young girl from Afghanistan being like you. Wow, welcome here. I hope you have a good time. And I was like sitting in the taxi, I was like, okay, I don't know, should I add, I grew up in Germany? Like, what kind of image do they have from Afghanistan? It was such a bizarre moment, but I decided not to tell him that I actually grew up in Germany, because I was like, no, I mean, I met Tamana, I met the students when I was 2017 in Afghanistan, and they were like me. And so I was like, I'm not going to tell him, I'm just going to let him see how Afghan girls can be. But yeah, like, this expectations from, like, just shaped by the media is like when you're from Afghanistan, I don't know how they think about other countries, but it was like this perception of how can you be so free? And
this is also very funny, just what you said, Zama. This is not only like the image of, let's say, Afghanistan outside, it's also how people see themselves inside, because I always was facing with this question, like when I was in Afghanistan. I lived in Afghanistan the last 20 years. Like, I see myself deep down Afghan, at least this is what I wish, and I'm claiming that I'm making Afghan films. But when I was in Kabul, like, whenever someone was seeing me in the street, because I was not really social, so I was not in a lot of places, and sometimes when I see somebody in the street, the first question they ask me, like, when did you arrive? And then the second question was, when do you want to leave? When are you flying out? And then I came here, like it's 1 year I'm living here, and then the moment I'm telling anyone, like if it's in the fitness or like any place, you know, the moment that I'm saying like I'm from Afghanistan, the first thing they are saying, you don't look like Afghan. And I feel so offended because I feel like I'm Afghan, and then at some point I have this question like what an Afghan exactly look like? Why I do not look Afghan, not in Afghanistan or outside, you know? And then in the film industry, like when there is a dinner or there is like get together or something, like when I'm saying like excuse me, like for example in the dinner, is it a beef or pork? They're like, oh no, this is not pork. You're from Afghanistan yet. I'm like, no, I didn't ask for that. I'm vegetarian. It's not like I do not eat pork. Or when the people ask me like, oh, do you want to drink? I'm like, I'm not drinking. They think, okay, sorry to ask. I was like, no, I drink, but I'm not drinking. And then in some points, I feel like I have to drink because, you know, because they don't think like I'm not drinking because I'm Muslim. So I think there is a very difference how I see myself and how the world is seeing me the moment I'm bringing up my nationality. So I think it's not only you who think like that, it's the whole world, including us.
So is there another question, a last one maybe? Yes.
Thank you. Yes, thank you first of all for coming here. It was so interesting to hear you talk. I'm half Iranian. My mother is from Germany and my father is a refugee from Iran. And ever since I was little, I always loved listening to his stories about his life, about his family's life. And I always planned on someday making a film about his life. So I just, like, on a maybe technical basis, like, where do you start making a documentary about someone who is still alive, who is very close to you? And do you have any tips or in general, like, what kind of, how can you decide like what aspects of a life are the most important for maybe just one movie or maybe 5 too? I don't know. So yeah, do you have any tips or any ideas?
Thank you. I think there must be some tips and ideas on this podium about this. Like some Balimbab is about your father, right?
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. But it is about my father. It's kind of about me growing up and about my memories of my father. Because my dad passed away 10 years ago, and I didn't have the time, like, because I realized when you're a teenager growing up, you're like, why can I not go out like my German friends? And they're like, you're happy for an Afghan girl, you have a lot of freedom. And you're like, no, I'm not coming home at 12 when she turned 16 at 12. So it's like kind of fighting always for your rights and like being in your own universe. And then by the time when I got old enough and I did my bachelor in the UK, and my dad was like my person to talk to a lot about cinema because he's the reason why I got into cinema. He gave me my first camera, camcorder and everything. So when he gave it to me with 15, I started just to film him and like everyone around me. So that's how I I could make with archive material a family movie if I would want to. But anyhow, like, by the time when I was 23, he got cancer and he passed away, and I didn't have the time when I realized, like, this is now the time I'm interested in him, and I'm interested in finding more about his past, because he was not a great talker, like and my mom was, because she studied literature, so I knew everything about her bringing up and her childhood, nothing about my dad. And then and of course, I was like, it was so close to me, this person, so I was like, I cannot watch the footage I took of him when I started to get my camera with 15, because I didn't want to hear his voice. I could look at his, like, without voice, I could look at it. With voice, I couldn't, because it was too real for me. And then I started to write about memories and like little sentences about him, and when it came to the point to make this short film, I remembered this. I remembered now, like, why my dad was the way he was when he was in Germany. Like, very closed, and I think he suffered depression, and because he couldn't do his job here, and all these things I started to understand during the writing of my memories of him, and also understand why he was never in our school for our graduation and things. He always found excuses, and back then, when you're 18, you don't understand. You think he's selfish, or why is he not coming? Your mom is coming. But now I understood it was kind of depression, anxiety, not fitting and not being able to talk with everyone about your job. And then I started to write Bambirak, which is also based on a memory with him, and make this movie kind of, because I actually missed him so much, and being with him, the movie is actually about a little girl who's named Kati, which is my sister. It's about a little girl, Kati, who wants to be with his dad and wants to spend her time with her dad. And through that, all these experiences of him and his frustration and anger became part of the story. And I think if we would have watched the movie, I don't know what we would have thought. That's why I'm it's always hard to make a movie about a close person, because you kind of, even if it's fiction, you expose them in a way. And if you're exposing the truth, and I think sometimes being faced with the truth is not easy when you're the subject. But in the same time, I think, for instance, my mother is the best example. My mother really cried, and she was so moved by the story, but also she found out a lot of things she didn't know, even though it's fiction. It's based on, it's very autobiographical, I must admit. But yeah, I also recently, maybe that helps you a little bit as well, if it's not fiction and you're talking about documentary. I recently finished a documentary about a young Syrian activist and ex-swimmer. And she actually, I was on board as a camera, as a cinematographer, and they auditioned me. They did a trial if she likes me or not. And we actually got really close. We became friends. I got to know her family. I got to know her younger sister. And it came to a point where she also called me for private reasons. And after seeing that documentary, she actually, right now, she made a cut with everyone of the documentary team. There's a silence between us as a camera team and her, and we became also friends and part of her family. So it was hard to see, but I think it's for her to kind of realize this is her, this is the truth, but she felt it exposed too much of her private life. So that's kind of something when you go towards direction documentary, maybe it's easier about your own family, because it's your dad, he can always forgive you, you know what I mean? It's kind of but there are times where you kind of, I think as a family you have a plus because you can annoy them, what can they do? But you have with them private life.
I think it's a good point for the final of this round, to talk about such a personal approach to a narrative of a film, because this is so universal. This has nothing to do with the region you come from, your cultural background, whatever. So this brings us back to the fact that we have all things to share which are close to each and every one of us. So as I said, I would love to talk ages with you, and hours and hours going on, but this panel has to find an end, but it won't end without being dedicated for the next few minutes to the first ever WIFT Hamburg residency. And for this, I would like to welcome a WIFT representative to this stage, to this field. Is Verena Grefe-Höft here? Yeah. Great. And Lars Meyer from Mensch Hamburg. And I will ask you, I will collect 2 microphones from you. May I have yours? And yes, thank you very much. Voila. So the stage is yours.
Yes, I'm very happy to announce the first mini residency that we can give to Shabanu Sadat with the help of the Gute Leute Fabrik, because with Hamburg, the passion here was supported, and that enables us to give this mini residency to Shah in order to find her voices, learn more about her unique characters, and draft the next treatment for one of the 5 films and submit it here at the Film Fund in Hamburg, which would be fantastic. I am personally very happy that you are in Hamburg, of course, and bring so much of your unique voice to Hamburg, and I'm very happy that you are the supporter of this, with Hamburg the Passion. Thank you.
I have to correct you. I am the CEO of Gute Leute Fabrik, but the money is from Mensch Hamburg. We have some actions while the corona things, and collecting money with a festival that never exist. And the name is Keiner kommt, alle machen mit. Nobody's coming, but everybody is in. And we sell tickets for a festival that doesn't exist and collect the money, and we could spend 1.1 million euros for the culture in Hamburg. And we think it is a good idea to support you with a small budget, but it could be a beginning, and perhaps from the Gute Leute Fabrik, we are doing public relations and events and so on. Perhaps we could support you with other things. Perhaps we can invite you to an event or support with public relation, because we have some contacts to the media and so on. So I will invite you to stay in contact with us. Thank you.
So of course, there are the obligatory flowers.
Yes. I'm so happy. Yes, and thank you. I mean, it was so amazing. I was sitting there and being like, yeah, just 1.5 hours. I loved it. Thank you for taking this on.
It was a great pleasure, and I thank you for asking me. So yeah, it was really a great pleasure, and as I said at the beginning, I'm honored to host all of you as women, as artists, as filmmakers, but first of all as human beings who really give voice and encouragement to so many others. Thank you so much. And before we leave this stage, there's just 2 things: the dates of the screenings in the festival program that have been mentioned again, like Tamina Rafaela's Banu, will be shown on Friday, 7th of October at 9 p.m. here in the Cinemax in the 2, and Adila Benemarat's The Last Queen is once more screened on Saturday, 8th of October at 16:45 in the beautiful Abaton. And after the festival, to stay in contact and to connect, because this is what WIFT is all about, there will be a WIFT screening for members only, but this is a good opportunity to become a member, actually, of The Woman King. This is about a band of female warriors in the West African kingdom of Dahomey in cooperation with Sony Pictures, and that will take place on Sunday, 9th of October. And there will be an online panel, The Woman King und die Signalwirkung auf den deutschen Film, am 13. October. So this is your opportunity to become a WIFT member. This was your opportunity to learn about filmmakers who really do their work with a heart and a mind for the people. Thank you so, so much.